up and smoke me when I die. And if anyone don't like it, just look 'em in the eye. I didn't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. Just roll me up and smoke me when I die. You won't see no sad and teary eyes when I get my wings and it's my time to fly. Just call my friends and tell them there's a party, come on by. So roll me up and smoke me when I die. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. And if anyone don't like it, just look 'em in the eye. I didn't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. Just roll me up and smoke me when I die. Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. That song was called Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die, and it's a special reason for that song. It's because on Friday morning I got word that my dad, Dan Warner, had died at 1 a.m. On Friday morning. What was that, November 19th, I think? Something like that. Anyway, he passed away. And he was a fan of Willie Nelson, and I was looking for a Willie Nelson song to do in his honor, and kind of scrolling through a list of Willie Nelson songs, and I came across that one, and I thought, oh, that's the most appropriate one. My dad had a good sense of humor, and I thought, maybe he'd appreciate me doing Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die by Willie Nelson as my little tribute to him. He's scheduled to be cremated. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit in this video. I'm going to try to make some kind of a Zen thing out of this video. But I don't know what I'm going to say in this video. I found some pictures of my dad to share with you, just to, this is kind of self-indulgent, and if you're not interested in self-indulgence, then maybe don't watch this video. But I just thought I'd just show you some pictures of my dad. And I'm not high-tech enough to figure out how I can look at these pictures at the same time I'm showing them to you, so I had to make a bunch of notes about them. So here are the pictures. Here's a picture of my dad sitting in a wicker chair in Kenya. I just found this. And here's another picture of him in the same wicker chair in Kenya. That's his real hair. I never got the full scoop on what our ancestry is. I've talked about this on this channel before, but that's my dad's real hair. I think we got some African ancestry in our family, and that might be one of the reasons I've often suspected why my dad was chosen out of all the people that they could have chosen at Firestone's Akron headquarters to. They sent several people out from the Akron headquarters to Nairobi, but of all the people they could have chosen, they chose my dad, and I wonder if it was because of that. Anyway, that's my dad in Kenya, and here's a weird black and white shot of my dad. I think this was for some kind of an ID photo, but he just looks so strange in this photo. I always thought it was funny. Here's a picture of my dad and my mom and his friends, their friends Ann and Ched Year Out. Ched Ched's still around. Ann passed away some time ago. Ched was short for Charles Edward Year Out, and they look like swinging 70s people. This is probably around 1974, so appropriate for the time. This is a picture of me and my dad on one of my dad's motorcycles in the front yard in Nairobi. Here's a family shot of me with my dad and mom and sister, probably shot in Olin Mills in Wadsworth, Ohio, after we'd come back from Kenya. These are all in random order. Here's a picture of my dad with a Christmas tree. Probably, I think this is in Nairobi, sometime in the 70s. Here's another picture from the 70s of me and my dad leaning on a street sign. I think this is probably in Hamilton, Ohio. My dad was from Hamilton, Ohio, or Fairfield, Ohio. They're two cities kind of right next to each other in southern Ohio. That's where my dad grew up. Then he moved to the Akron area, to Wadsworth, just after I was born, to take a job in Akron at the Firestone Tire Company. This is me and my dad on a camel in Egypt. And that's one of the things I'm really grateful to my dad for doing. He got offered a position in Nairobi, Kenya. I think I was about 6 or 7 years old at the time. My sister would have been 4 or 5 years old, I guess. I don't know. I'll calculate this later and maybe correct this video at some time in the future. Anyway, we were two little kids. My dad and mom had two little kids, and they decided to go out to Nairobi. And because we were stationed in Nairobi, he was stationed in Nairobi, we had the option, Firestone gave the option of going on home leave I think it was every 6 months or once a year. It felt like more like twice a year that we were allowed to go on home leave. I guess it was twice a year. I think it was summer and then Christmas time. And my dad, instead of going back to Ohio for all of these home leaves, decided we'd go see the world. And that's why we ended up going to Egypt, Ethiopia, France, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Switzerland, golly, a bunch of places. I'm probably forgetting all the places we went, and it was a way that we were middle class family. We were not rich people, but I got to see a lot of the world that only rich people got to see, and that was really neat, and I really thank my father for making that happen. So he was the guy that made that happen and figured out how to budget it and figured out how to make it work. So that was really cool. So instead of going back to Ohio, we went out and saw the world. Here's a picture of my mom and dad. I'm not sure what the occasion of this picture is. A little portrait of them. My dad's in a University of Miami of Ohio sweatshirt. That's where he went to school. Here's a picture of a giraffe, and that's not my dad, but my dad took this picture, and this was when we were in Kenya, and that giraffe stood in front of our car. We were in a game preserve. We weren't just on a normal road, but that giraffe stood in front of our car. And he was like, great, let's take a picture of this giraffe standing in front of a car. And it was a great, wonderful moment. And then after that great, wonderful moment, the giraffe just stood there in front of our car. I remember this. And wouldn't move. And we're like beeping, beep, 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 and like inching the car up towards the giraffe. And the giraffe still wouldn't move. And we got right up in front of that giraffe. And eventually the giraffe finally decided to move. And that was neat. Here's my dad and mom, and I don't know where they are. For some reason, I think they were in Florida. I don't know why. Just another picture. And here's my dad and mom much later with my Aunt Betty. My Aunt Betty passed away a couple of years ago. And that's just a picture of them. This is after we came back from Kenya, some years after. And here's a picture of my dad sitting on a swing in front of our house in Nairobi. Just a random picture. And here's a picture that I really like. It's a picture of my dad in a little sailor suit, and I don't know how old he is. Of course, he's a child. And the picture has a special meaning for me because I was at a Zen retreat in southern Minnesota, and often when I'm at Zen retreats, I have lucid dreams. And I had this real interesting lucid dream. You know, lucid dream is where you kind of wake up during the dream and realize you're dreaming. And I was in a field of deep grass, and there was my dad looking just like he does in that picture. And he was standing in this deep grass, and we made eye contact with each other. And there I was looking at my dad as he's looking just like he did in that picture. And I still remember it as if, well, lucid dreams are really weird because if you've ever had one, it feels like, to me, it feels like almost like a memory of something that actually happened in real life. So it's almost like I met my dad at that age. And since he's died, I don't want to make too much of this, but I had a little encounter with him after he died in which he kind of appeared to me again at that age. So, interesting. So, say no more, as the Monty Python troupe said. On the occasion of after his death, I was kind of trying to figure out what one does, and this will tell you something about me. My training in Zen did not include a lot of ritual and ceremonial stuff. I've said this often in my books and elsewhere on this YouTube channel and so forth. My teachers, Tim McCarthy and Gudo Wafu Nishijima Roshi, neither of them were very interested in that aspect. A lot of Zen teachers are very interested in that aspect, and they train their students in how to do rituals and ceremonies and so forth. Other Zen teachers are not interested in that aspect of it at all, and I ended up with two teachers who were like that. So whenever something like this comes up, when it happened when my mom died, same thing. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the rituals and ceremonies are, so I'm always left scrambling, looking up books and websites and things. Ziggy's sniffing my butt right now. What are you sniffing at? You can't see him, but he's right behind me. There he... Oh, no, that isn't him. That's my hand. Anyway. So I was looking up things in various books, and I remembered I had this book. Philip Kapleau wrote this book called The Wheel of Death, and it doesn't really have anything to do with rituals and ceremonies, but it's got a lot of little quotes. It's got various quotes by different Zen teachers about death and different teachers of all stripes about death. And I just thought this one was sort of interesting. This is, he attributes it to Master Obaku, who is Huangpo, and I talked about him, about Obaku Huangpo, I don't know, a few videos ago. Maybe it was, I don't remember, a video that I did recently. And when I was watching the video back to edit it, I realized I was going all over the map. I was going back and forth between calling him Huangpo and Obaku. That's because if you study with a Japanese Zen teacher, as I did, they call him Obaku. But it's more common for American Zen teachers to call him Huangpo, because that's sort of his proper name in Chinese is Huangpo. That's how the Chinese pronounce it. The Japanese pronounce it Obaku. Anyway, here's what Obaku, aka Huangpo, had to say, and it's not exactly about death, but this seems relevant to me, so I'm going to read it to you. Here we go. Gautama Buddha refuted the notion that enlightenment will lead to the perception of a universal substance composed of particles which some hold to be gross and others subtle. How is it possible that Gautama Buddha, who denied all such views, could have originated the present conceptions of enlightenment as a special state as opposed to non-enlightenment? But as those doctrines are still commonly taught, people become involved in the duality of longing for light and eschewing darkness. In their anxiety to seek enlightenment on the one hand and to escape from the passions and ignorance of corporeal existence on the other, they conceive of an enlightened Buddha and unenlightened sentient beings as separate entities. Continued indulgence in such dualistic concepts as these will lead to your rebirth among the six orders of beings, life after life, eon upon eon, forever and forever. And why is it thus? Because of falsifying the doctrine that the original source of the Buddhas is that self-existent nature. Nature is in capital letters here. Let me assure you, not all capital letters, just a capital N. Let me assure you again that the Buddha dwells not in light nor sentient beings in darkness, for the truth allows no such distinctions. The Buddha is not mighty nor sentient beings feeble, for the truth allows no such distinctions. The Buddha is not enlightened, nor sentient beings ignorant, for the truth allows no such distinctions. It is all because you take it upon yourself to talk of explaining Zen. I just like that quote. It just happens to be in this book. And he's got a lot of quotes here from different Zen masters. Here's a real famous one. Zen master Hokwin said, "A nobleman," I've referenced this one before, you're probably sick of hearing me do this one. "A nobleman asked Master Hokwin, 'What happens to the enlightened man at death?' The master replied, 'Why ask me?' 'Because you're a Zen master,' said the nobleman. 'Yes,' said Hokwin, 'but not a dead one.'" Nice one. I always like that one. Here's some other good ones of different Zen teachers upon the occasion of death and so on. Master Takan. Takan was dying. His disciples asked that he write a death poem. Zen teachers often do this, write death poems when they're dying. Dogen wrote one. I didn't bring his out here, so don't have it with me. But anyway, here's Takan's. Takan refused, but when they insisted that he should write one, he wrote the character Yume, which means dream, and then he died. Here's one from Roshi Taji. As Roshi Taji, a contemporary Zen master, approached death, his senior disciples assembled at his bedside. One of them, remembering the Roshi was fond of a certain kind of cake, had spent half a day searching the pastry shops of Tokyo for this confection, which he now presented to Roshi Taji. With a wan smile, the dying Roshi accepted a piece of the cake and slowly began munching it. As the Roshi grew weaker, his disciples leaned close and inquired whether he had any final words for them. "Yes," the Roshi replied. The disciples leaned forward eagerly. "Please tell us." "My, but this cake is delicious." And with that he died. This one I like. This is Master Tozan. When Tozan was dying, a monk said to him, "Master, your 4 elements are out of harmony, but is there anyone who is never ill?" "There is," said Tozan. "Does this one look at you?" asked the monk. "It is my function to look at him," answered Tozan. "How about when you yourself look at him?" asked the monk. "At that moment I see no illness," replied Tozan. And I'll leave you with this one. Master Kasan. When Kasan was about to die, he called the chief monk and said to him, "I have preached the way to the monks for many years. The profound meaning of Buddhism is to be known by each person himself. My illusory life is over. I am about to depart. You monks should go on just the same as when I was alive. You should not blindly make ordinary people miserable." Having said this, he immediately passed away. So I think that's good advice. Don't go around making people miserable. So I think that's the best advice I can give you, is don't go around making people miserable. And I think that's what I'm going to try to do now that my dad has died, is I will try not to go around making people miserable. So I don't want to make you any more miserable with this video. That's my little tribute to my dad. It's not very good, but it's what I got. And we'll see if I can come up with a better video. I don't know how many videos I'm going to be able to do this week because it's Thanksgiving week and I got my nephew coming over and I got a bunch of things to do, but we'll see how many I get to do this week. And maybe after Thanksgiving's over, I'll be back to my regular schedule. We'll see. But for now, that's all I got. If you want to donate to me buying Thanksgiving dinner and stuff, you can go to the URL you are seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is where you will find my PayPal and Patreon links. As always, those are my main sources of income, and that's where I make my money. But you don't got to donate if you don't want to donate. So that's that, and we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Laters. Bye. All right, Ziggy, you ready to go inside? You don't like hearing those garbage trucks like we heard this morning, right? All right. You never got to meet my dad, did you? That's too bad. Alright, let's go inside and edit the video, okay?